Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today I'm doing a Brotherhood of the Fire Fist deck profile. So this deck is really insane, and is probably one of the craziest combo decks now outside of DDD. This deck is really cool and does every single mechanic outside of Pendulum, which is really insane to me that there's like a few decks in the entire game that do so many different summoning mechanics, but this one literally in one pack gained like Fusion, Ritual, and a Link monster all in one pack, which was really crazy to me back in Fist of the Gadget. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below because we have some awesome rewards for you guys, like getting your name in the description of every single video, getting a signed card sent in the mail, or even getting requested deck profile just like this one every single month that you are a patron, along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Elephant. So Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Elephant is, if this card is normal or special summon, then you can send a face-up fire formation spell or trap to the graveyard, and then special summon a Fire Fist monster from your hand, which is one of the 2 really good effects on this card. The second effect of this card is that you can target a fire formation spell or trap in your graveyard, shuffle it into the deck, and then you get to add a level 5 or higher Fire Fist monster from your deck to your hand, which is normally going to be your Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Panda. You always want to open up Elephant, by the way. Elephant and Raven are like the 2 best ones to open up. We then play 3 copies of Panda. You're never going to play just 1 Panda, but you play 3 Pandas. You can probably get away with 2, but I like 3 in my particular build, because if a Fire Formation spell or trap is activated, then you can special summon this card from your hand, then you can special summon a Fire Fist monster from your graveyard, except another copy of Panda. And you can only control 1 copy of Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Panda, you can only special summon Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Panda once per turn this way. In Fire Fist monsters, if a Fire Fist monster you control will be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, then you can send 1 face-up Fire Formation spell or trap to the graveyard instead as well, so it also protects your Fire Fist monsters. We then play 3 of my personal favorite, which is 3 copies of Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Dragon. This card is essentially a walking monster reborn, because it has the ability that you can once per turn, if you activate a Fire Formation spell or trap, then you can set a Fire Formation trap directly from your deck, which is always going to be your Fire Formation Cento that's going to go directly to your side of the field to get you a negate on the field as well. Then it has the ability that you can send 2 face-up Fire Formation spells or traps you control to the graveyard, and then you get special summon a Fire Fist from your graveyard. Now, keep in mind, when you think about sending Fire Fists to the graveyard, or sending Fire Formations to the graveyard, your Eagle turns that off. When you have Eagle on the field, it makes it so you don't have to send to the graveyard to activate their effects, which is kind of insane. We then play 3 copies of Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Raven. Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Raven is so important in this deck because you always want to normal summon this card first. It's your big starter because if it's sent to the graveyard, then you can set a Fire Formation spell or trap directly from your deck. And then face-up Fire Formation spells you control cannot be destroyed by opponent's card effect. Now keep in mind, that card is not once per turn, so what you're going to want to normally do in this deck that's your opener of the deck is what I do is I always normal summon out my Raven, and then immediately link it away for a copy of Alamirage, because then I can tribute the Alamirage to protect something and get a search off of a protection, which is really cool. I love being able to just normal summon out the copy of Raven, go into Alamirage, and then go from plays from there. I then play 2 copies of Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Rooster. Rooster is really good in the deck because what this card does is when this card is special summoned by the effect of a Fire Fist monster, you get to add a Fire Fist monster from your deck to your hand, and you can only use this effect once per turn. Then once per turn, you can send a face-up Fire Formation to your control to the graveyard to set a Fire Formation directly from your deck. So it searches your Fire Formations. Even if it's not special summoned, you can once per turn use that effect, which is pretty good. We play 2 copies of a personal tech that I really like in this deck, and there's 2 copies of Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Coyote. Coyote is neat, okay? If you don't open up Tinky, Raven, or Elephant, which I know that sounds like a lot, but if you don't open up any of those 9 cards and you have Coyote, you can still play, because if you control a Fire Formation and no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand, and then if you have a second Fire Fist monster in your hand, you can start Link climbing, and you can use this card for a lot of different Link plays as well, and it's a really good extender that you can start out with to bait your opponent out of like a trap hole or something like that, that you can just bait your opponent out of a Solemn Strike, a copy of Judgment, or something like that, that they think this is the only card that you might have in your hand. that you can special summon. We play a single copy of Bear. I feel like at this point you only need one Bear. Bear lets you send a fire formation you control to the graveyard and then pop a card. And it also has the ability that once per turn when it inflicts battle damage, you can set a fire formation spell directly from your deck, which is pretty good, but you'd only need it for like once in the game. We play a single copy of Buffalo. You don't want to use this card's effect unless you have Eagle. You have to send 2 fire formation or fire fist monsters from your hand or face your field to the graveyard to special summon this card. 1 copy of Spirit. Spirit's good for synchro summoning into Horse Prince, which you do very rarely nowadays. But what it does is it lets you target a level 3 fire monster with 200 defense in your graveyard and special summon it, which is pretty good to be able to use it to go with your copy of Leopard. Leopard, you contribute it to set a fire formation spell directly from your deck, which is pretty good. And then we play a single copy of Eland. Eland is pretty good in the deck too. This card is a good, it's a really good play to summon Eland and then end with the Eland, because it has the ability that you can discard a card to set a fire formation spell or trap directly from your graveyard, deck, or graveyard. And when your opponent activates a monster effect, you can quick effect send to face up Fire Fist or fire formation you control to the graveyard, and then negate the effect, which is good to have like a walking negate on your side of the field. So that's it for the Fire Fist monsters. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Monster Reborn because it's a good extender in the deck. It just helps out to get into your other cards. We play 3 copies of Tenki, which is essentially the Rhoda of the deck, and keep in mind all of your Fire Formation cards make your Fire Fist monsters go up by 100 attack, which is pretty neat. We play 3 copies of Tensu. For every one of them on the field, you get an additional normal summon, which is insanely good in this deck. We play 2 copies of Dome. Dome is actually the ritual spell. When this card is activated, you get to ritual summon 1 Beast Warrior monster from your hand, or by attributing monsters from your hand or field whose total level equal or exceed that monster's. And if this face-up card is sent from your spell and trap cards onto the graveyard, which if you remember, a lot of your Fire Fist monsters use their effects to send cards to the graveyard, and this is one time it actually benefits you. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target a Fire Fist monster in your graveyard and special summon it. The reason you play 2 is because you don't mind opening up with it, so you can search the Eland off your copy of Elephant, and then immediately ritual summon in your copy of Eland, and send this card to the graveyard, and then essentially get you another play rolling. We play 2 copies of Engine. Engine is the fusion spell of the deck. That's really insane too, that this is a fusion spell, but it's a continuous spell. When it's activated, you can fusion summon a Fire Warrior monster from your extra deck. And it also has the ability that you can target a Fire Fist monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand if this card is sent to the graveyard, which is pretty good. We play a single copy of Gyoko. Gyoko lets you target a set spell or trap your opponent controls, and your opponent cannot activate that card in response to this card's activated effect. And they can't activate that card while this card's on the field, which is pretty good to be able to lock your opponent down on one of their spells or traps. We play a single copy of Yoko. Yoko is a really neat card to bait Dragoon, okay? Because what you do is you activate this, and then you target a monster your opponent controls, discard a Beast Warrior, and if you do, you destroy that card. So they have to stop this if they don't want to lose their Dragoon. We play a single copy of Fire Fortress as top Lang Peak. Lang Peak is pretty good. I don't use it to special summon out Heraclanos anymore, because putting 10 counters on this card is a little much, unless you're going for the plus 11 combo, which is kind of hard to pull off in this deck. And if you get interrupted at any point in it and you can't stop it, it's pretty much over with. But what I usually use this card for is the 6 effect that lets you add a Beast Warrior monster from your deck to your hand to really help out the deck to go into some more plays. But what this card does is each time a Fire Fist monster is normally special summoned, you can place a Fire Fist counter on this card, and once per turn you can remove counters from this card to activate one of the effects, which is pretty good. I like that ability to be able to just get a Beast Warrior out of your deck by removing 6 counters. It's not super hard, and it's pretty easy to just trigger off, especially with your Tensu, because then you can special summon it, or normal summon it out to your side of the field as well. We then play 3 copies of Call by the Grave, because, you know, thou shalt always play 3 Call by the Grave. This card's really good in the deck because it's a based combo deck, and so you want to be able to stop your opponent from, you know, preventing you from searching with Ash Blossom. It's just really, really, really good in the deck. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Sento. Sento is the big negation card of the deck. What this card does is when a spell or trap is activated while you control a Fire Fist monster, then you negate the activation, which is pretty good, and if you do, you destroy it. So you just completely negate a spell or trap, which is really, really nice to be able to just stop anything that you particularly need to stop. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Eagle. Kaka, what this card does is you get to, basically, I kind of explained it a little bit earlier, you don't have to send Fire Formation spells or traps to the graveyard to be able to trigger their effects. And then it also lets you use the ability that you can target a Fire Formation spell or trap you control, or in your graveyard, and return it to the hand if you use to send a Fire Fist monster from your deck to the graveyard, which is going to be Buffalo, and why you play Buffalo in the deck, to be able to just special summon it off your copy of Eagle. We then play a single copy of Peacock, which is really underrated in this deck. What this card does is when this card points to a Fire Fist monster, your opponent's monsters cannot target this card for attacks, and when this card declares an attack, you can send a face-up Fire Formation spell or trap you control to the graveyard, and then target a monster your opponent controls, and place that monster, opponent's monster, in a zone this card points to, which is pretty good to be able to just immediately get that card onto your side of the field. It just is super nice to be able to just get that monster. And it also has the ability that after you do that, you have to give it back to your opponent during the end phase, which can still help you OTK your opponent. You play 2 copies of Tiger King. Tiger King is insanely good in this deck, and probably one of the best cards in the entire extra deck, because when you summon it, you get to set a Fire Formation directly from your deck to the graveyard, or directly from your deck to your side of the field. And it also has the ability that once per turn, you can detach a material from this card, negate the effects of all face-up effect monsters your opponent currently controls. And then it also has a third effect that you can send 3 Fire Formation cards you control to the graveyard, and then special summon 2 level 4 or lower Beast Warrior monsters from your deck with the same attack, which is pretty insane. But the really cool thing about this is when it's sent from the field to the graveyard, you can do that. We then play a single copy of Lion Emperor. Lion Emperor is pretty cool too, because once per turn you can detach a material, then target a fire monster in your graveyard and add it back to your hand. But you cannot normal or special summon that monster for the rest of the turn. Cardinal's really good at bouncing stuff. You detach 2 materials from this card to target 2 Fire Fist or Fire Formations in your graveyard, or your face up in your field, and then 2 cards your opponent controls and bounce those as well, which is again really good. 1 copy of Swan, you're gonna go ahead and fusion summon into Swan normally in this deck with your copy of Engine, which is a good beat stick. What this card does is if it's special summon, you inflict 200 points of damage to your opponent for each Fire Formation spell or trap you control. Then during the battle phase, you can send a face up Fire Formation spell or trap you control to the graveyard, then target 1 card your opponent controls and destroy it. So it just helps you pop cards on your opponent's side of the field. 1 Horse Prince, I rarely summon this nowadays, but it's still kind of like an old throwback, and you kind of can draw into your copy of your Spirit, and then go Spirit Leopard into this, which is still pretty cool. When this card is Synchro Summon, you can special summon a level 3 monster from your deck that's a fire monster, so you're going to special summon out your copy of your Rooster, and then Rooster's going to trigger, and then you start comboing off from there. 1 copy of Access Code Talker, just to be able to pop access cards on your opponent's side of the field to help you OTK. Unicorn, to be able to bounce cards on the field. Phoenix to pop spells and traps. Cerberus to pop monsters. Alamirage because of Raven. And a single copy of Abyss Dweller just to shut down our opponent's board. So, that's it for the main deck, or that's it for the entire deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really fun deck to play around with. It's not insanely expensive like it used to be, but it's mid-price range is what I would say. You can probably get away with maybe $150 for the entire deck. Maybe 100 nowadays. I think I would probably say about 150 to be safe, because I think that copies of Elephant and Panda are like 10 apiece, and then your Eagles are 10 apiece, which is not terrible, but it's like $80 and like 8 cards, so you got to keep that in mind. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell near so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.